Hello everybody and welcome to Lunch Break Live. We are talking meal prep today. Are you prepared? We're talking about getting organized so you can have a week's worth of meals that are healthy, that are vegan, that are at your disposal, and you won't have to go out and figure every day, where am I gonna go for lunch? You can have some healthy lunch prepared in advance. So we're talking all about that today. Welcome to Lunch Break Live. Now, what is meal prep? All it is preparing meals in advance for whatever reason makes sense to you. Susan Jose just joined us from Pennsylvania. Hey, Susan, my twin sister and co-author. So meal prep used to be something that bodybuilders did because they wanted to get their exact nutrients and calories and proteins and carbs and fats in each meal, so they carefully planned it out for the week. But now everybody is doing meal prep. In fact, I walked into my grocery store and there was like an entire aisle dedicated to meal prep containers. I know our labels are backwards. This is Good Cook Meal Prep, and you get 10 containers and lids per package. These are reusable, they're microwave safe, they're dishwasher safe, they're freezer safe, and you can just easily put together a lot of meals in one sitting. So what I usually do is I do it on a Sunday for the week ahead, and then I've got all my lunches prepared, but you can do it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, whatever works for you. The whole purpose for me for meal prep is getting organized and making sure I'm putting healthy meals together so I don't succumb to going out and eating fast food. Even if it's vegan fast food, it's still not the healthiest in the world. So this keeps me in check. I do it on a Sunday, I get organized, and I'm ready for the week. So you can prepare whatever meals you like. I'm gonna show you my favorite meal prep for lunches, and I'll tell you why it's my favorite. And Dorothy just joined us. Thanks, Dorothy. We love having you here. We're talking meal prep today, vegan meal prep. And for those of you just joining, I'm Sandra from the 40-Year-Old Vegan Cookbook. I'm a 59-year-old vegan, helping you get lean, clean, and green at any age with vegan cooking and meal prep. So I'm starting with my sauce. Now, when you're doing meal prep, you want to make sure you're doing a sauce or a topping that is super flavorful, because you want to get excited about something. If you're going to be eating the same thing relatively, for the next 4 or 5 days, you want to make it something you're going to get excited about. So one of the things I love as a topping is pico de gallo, because it's so delicious, it's fresh, it's low fat, and you can load up on it, and there's hardly any calories. So I'm going to start making my pico de gallo, and I'm going to start with about a cup of red onion, and I'm going to put it in my Cuisinart and just pulse it a couple times. And I've got lots of people texting me today, so when you see me touching the screen, I'm trying to move their text up because it's preventing me from seeing you. So I put in my onion, and another thing I do that helps me out, hey, Betty Ann, she says, what are you making? We are making a week's worth of meals. We're doing meal prep today, so you can prepare your meals in advance and have something healthy. So I'm starting with a great topping because I love pico de gallo, and pico de gallo is the salsa that you get when you go to a Mexican restaurant. It's fresh tomatoes and onions and herbs. And one of the things I do is I get these pre-packaged small grape tomatoes because they are the exact amount that I need for 1 week's worth of pico. So it's kind of a hack that helps me do the right amount. Also, because they're small, don't require a lot of chopping, even in the Cuisinart. So I've got my onions in there, I've got my tomatoes, I've got about a cup of fresh cilantro. Now, some people would say that's too much, but I say there's no such thing as too much cilantro. It's delicious. If you are someone who likes your dishes spicy, you can put in a jalapeno. This is a big jalapeno. I've got about a quarter jalapeno in here. I'm putting that on top. And then finally, wouldn't be pico without some fresh squeezed lime juice. This is key. It gives it a nice, fresh, citrusy flavor. And again, when you're doing meal prep, you're eating the same meal for several days. So you want something that's going to get you excited to eat it, and a good sauce will usually do that. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt. And what I find is when you add citrus flavor, you don't need quite as much salt. So put in as much salt to taste as you want. I'm putting like a really big pinch in there. And then we're just gonna pulse it to make it a chunky, fresh salsa. And this is gonna be on the topping of our meals. show it to you. I'm gonna let it sit for a while and marinate. And whenever you let something sit in your Cuisinart, take the blade out, because the moisture will dull the blade and the citrus will dull the blade. So you want to take it out, and I'm letting it sit so it can marinate in those flavors and all those flavors can blend together. So I'll show you kind of how chunky this all is. And this is going to be the topping for our lunch. See how nice and chunky that is? So I'm going to let it just sit aside. I'm going to move my Cuisinart out of the way. You're probably wondering, okay, we got the topping, but what's the main course? Well, I will show you the main course. So again, meal prep. Betty Ann says, are you doing just lunches? Yes, I'm doing just lunches today, but meal prep can be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. If you wanted to do, for example, breakfast, you can do overnight oats and have them in bowls or jars every day. I usually have a smoothie for breakfast, and I like to make that fresh, so I choose to do lunches for meal prep. So I'm making 4, and I'm going to use these containers. You can use these, and again, this is Good Cook brand meal prep, and these are dishwasher safe. You can freeze them, you can microwave them, you can use them over and over. You can also use these clear glass Pyrex. You can get these at Target, and these are really handy too. It's nice to see what's in there when you're making your lunches. So one of the things that I want to do in my meal prep is first make sure I have enough greens. And Cindy just joined us. So I always start with my greens to ensure that I'm going to get them. Now I've got some steamed kale here. You can use whatever greens you like. And one way to get variety, and I'm just going to put them in my dishes here. One way to get variety is you can mix up the greens that you use. So I'm going to use some steamed kale on my first 2 dishes. I'm only making 4. I'm not making 5 because I feel like after 4 days I'm kind of done with that meal, and usually I like to leave an extra day if I do a business lunch or I'm going out. I also don't like to leave things in the fridge for 5 days. I feel like they're starting to break down a little bit after 5 days, so I'm making 4. But one way you can mix it up, so I could have done kale on all 4, but I decided to do kale on 2 and arugula on 2, and I love both of these greens. So again, make things that you love and that you're going to look forward to for lunch or dinner, whatever you're preparing this for. And the thing I like about these greens, they have a little bit of bitterness to them, and some people don't like bitter greens, but one way to counteract that is with my next ingredient. Kim Wagner-Lee is here. And so if you're someone who says, yeah, I know I need to eat kale and arugula because they're good for me, but they're a little bit bitter, what I do is I serve them with the main course here, which is sweet potato. So I've been cooking these for about 40 minutes. I boil them. You can bake them if you like, but I'm going to add a sweet potato on top of my greens and try to get the same size sweet potatoes so they cook evenly, but I just put them in a big pot of water. I boiled them for about 40 minutes until they're fork tender, and then I put them right on top of my greens. And this is so easy because you can be boiling these or baking them, whichever you prefer, while you're making your other ingredients. And the combination of the sweet potato with the bitter greens is really good, and it will make you really appreciate the greens and the potato even more because it's such a good contrast. And that's another thing I want to mention. When you're doing meal prep, try to contrast colors and textures and flavors because it's going to be something that you get excited about eating. So now that I've put that in there, I'm going to cut the potato open to prepare for the ingredients we're going to put inside. So I cut it right down the middle, and it cuts open really beautifully. I'm just going to spread it out a little bit, and you see that bright orange, and I'll show this, I'll hold this up for you later. You can actually cut it a few times if you like. So I'm just going to cut it wide open. I've got that beautiful exposed orangey flesh. Let me just show you this one. You already see the contrast in color. I've got the kale and the sweet potato, and it's nice and soft inside. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to add some protein because that's what's going to make you feel full. We've got the greens, we've got the starch with the sweet potato. So here's another opportunity for you to mix up your protein. My 2 favorite proteins are garbanzo beans, and tofu. And this tofu, all I did was cut it up. I put some coconut aminos on, and I cooked it in my air fryer. So again, you could use beans on everything. You can use tofu on everything. I'm gonna mix it up. So I'm gonna put a bunch of beans on top here, on 2 of them. And then I'm gonna put my tofu on the other 2. So that way you get a little bit of variety during the week, and you know you're getting your tofu in there, or your protein in there. And again, it looks so delicious. Get lots of tofu. I'm going to use all of it. I'm using about, this is probably more than some people would eat, but I'm using about a half package of tofu in each one, because I love it, and it's something that I really look forward to. So now that you've got your protein, we are going to go back to the topping that we made. So remember, I made my pico de gallo at the beginning. The only thing I'm going to do to this now is I'm going to drain it. And Jen says, is the tofu flavored? No, I took it right out of the package. I let it marinate a little bit in some coconut aminos. You can use soy sauce, put a little sprinkling of salt on it, and I put it in the air fryer. So you can flavor it. You can buy already flavored tofu. They make tofu in different flavors like hickory and sesame. So prepare it however you like. That's just my favorite way to do it. It's really basic. It gives it just a little bit of flavor, and the air fryer gives it a really nice texture. So the one thing I'm going to do with our pico, and it's really beautiful, but I'm going to strain it because I don't want anything to get soggy in there. So I'm going to take it and put it in a strainer. Normally I wouldn't do this, but because this is going to be sitting for a while, you can see how much liquid I took out of there. I don't want the potato to get soggy, so I'm just going to take the liquid out, and we'll have that pure pico. And I'm going to press it a little bit in my strainer, and this is going to be our beautiful, colorful topping for the potato. So all you got to do now is start scooping it on your creation. So I'm going to put some on my potato here, right on top. And this is going to be 4 servings. There's tons of pico because this is hardly any calories at all. So you might as well take advantage of that. There's just a huge amount of pico here. And that's 4 servings worth. And it's absolutely delicious. And it's so fresh. When you go bite into this, you're going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I took the time to make this. Now I also like to add, we have our protein, we have our starch, we have our greens, but I like to add some fat because Kim says this just keeps getting better and better. Thank you, Kim. I hope you love this because this is my absolute favorite lunch to bring. So I also want to add some fat to the top. Here's where we get kind of decadent. So I'll give you some options here. But what I do to top this masterpiece off is I put in a wedge of Miyoko's Creamery double cream chive cheese, mind blower. It is so delicious, and I put it right on top, and this is my fat for the dish. And when you combine this creaminess with the sort of spicy pico de gallo, you've got the protein with the beans and the tofu. It is so delicious, and that fat, you need the fat for, first of all, to absorb the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So you want that fat for absorption and for flavor, and you want that feeling of satiety. So you can say, oh my gosh, I feel full, but when you eat it, you'll feel full, but you won't feel overly full. And Jen says, loves Miyoko's. I know, isn't it amazing what she has done with cheese? So the final thing I'm gonna do, actually there's 2 more things. Now if you don't have the cheese, or you decide you want some other type of fat, you can put a quarter of an avocado on each one, which goes perfectly with the pico, by the way. The avocado is a great fat to add, but try to add some form of fat. And then finally, just to make it a little colorful, I'm gonna take some purple shredded cabbage because again, you wanna get excited about the color, about the crunch, and you wanna make this special. So it's not just same old sandwich for lunch, it's something that you're gonna look forward to. And then finally, for a little bit of garnish, I'm gonna put just a quarter of lime on each one, and that's going to just add to it, make it special, make it something that you look forward to. And I'm going to hold these up on a board so you can see what they look like close up all together. And it's kind of fun because this is sort of the classic meal prep look when you've got them lined up in a row and you've got them out on your counter ready to serve. But look at these. So this is 3 of them, and we've got, I'm trying not to tip this over. So we've got the greens, we've got the sweet potato covered with pico de gallo, a little bit of purple cabbage. We've got the miyokos for our fat, and then we've got either garbanzos or tofu for our protein. And Melissa Platt just joined us from Long Beach. She says looks delicious. And this is so, so delicious. And Kim says, I'm definitely impressed with the meal. You will love this meal. And it's something that I make a lot, and it never gets boring for me. It's always super delicious. So when you're done with your meal prep, you usually have your trays laid out. All you do is you put them together. And one thing you should think about when you're preparing these is when you eat them, are you going to heat them up and eat them, or are you going to eat them at room temperature? And I've done it both ways. But the reason you should consider that is if you're going to eat them at room temperature, you could put romaine lettuce or something like that. But if you're going to heat it, I would not put in a green that won't work well with the heat. So romaine lettuce, if you were going to heat it, I wouldn't use that. So I'm eating mine at room temperature. Another thing is if you're going to heat it, you might want to put the pico on the side if you like your pico kind of cold and fresh with the hot baked potato. But again, for this week's worth of lunch, I'm going to be just having them at room temperature. So here's what I do. I get a bag that will accommodate all of my lunches, and I put them in here. And get a nice bag too that you get excited about. And you can just, I bring the whole thing to work. I have a fridge at work, so I just take it like this, and I bring it to work with me, and it fits nicely in my fridge, and then I take out one each day. I'm also going to add for a little dessert 4 cuties. So these go right in the bag, and I've got a week's worth of lunches ready to go, and that was pretty easy, right? Betty Ann says, I like how you put your greens on the bottom. Yes, so I like the greens on the bottom too. They just are a nice sort of basis for the food, and when you sit down and eat it, you get such a variety. You've got like those bitter greens, the sweet potato, you've got that fresh salsa, you've got the creaminess of the cheese, and then you've got the substantial protein from the beans and the tofu. And when you're done, you will feel so satisfied, but you won't feel weighed down. You're not going to feel like, oh gosh, why did I eat all of that? So that is our meal prep for this week. We will post the ingredients on Lunch Break Live on janeunchained.com. But really, the ingredients are up to you. The most important thing is you find a time during the week, and Sunday's usually a great day to do it. Then you're prepared for the whole week. You can do 4 or 5 meals. I choose to do 4. I think 5 is a little bit too much. And then fill it with the things you love. Just make note to include a green, a protein, a starch, a carb, a fat, and you've got all your bases covered. And the more colors and textures you can put in, the better. Then you know you're kind of eating from the rainbow, and we always like to do that. Kim says, this is up there in my favorites. Thank you so much, Kim. You're always such a loyal watcher. We love having you here. And that's pretty much it for meal prep. So experiment if you want to get the Good Cook containers or the Pyrex containers. Try whatever works for you. The most important thing is that you do it, and that little bit of preparation at the beginning of the week will make a difference for the rest of the week, and you'll be more likely to eat healthy. Because trust me, I'm a junk food person. I will always default to junk food if I'm not prepared, and I'm not the most organized person. But if I take the time to get prepared early in the week, I'm pretty much good for the whole week. And you'll feel better about what you're eating when you prepare it in advance, and make sure you're putting in some clean, healthy vibrant, delicious foods. So that's it for today's Lunch Break Live. Love having you here today. Thank you for joining us. And remember, all this food is not only good for you, it's good for animals, it's good for the planet. You're eating in a healthy and responsible way that is going to give you vibrance and longevity. I want to thank you for being here today on Lunch Break Live. Jane Velez Mitchell is back every day with stories, food, all things vegan living. So stay tuned here. I'm Sandra from the 40-Year-Old Vegan Cookbook, and I'll see you next time on Lunch Break Live.